Raf-Saperra, it is a pleasure to have you here. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you having me down, Haroon.
It is my pleasure because I feel like this is long overdue.
Yeah, 100%.
I think what I've seen you do over the last 4.5 years is incredible. I don't think I've seen an artist rise as quickly but also so consistently as you have. How have the last 4.5 years in particular been for you?
As you say, like 4.5 isn't exactly the longest stretch, but it's not exactly the shortest either. It's been very, very rewarding, Haroon. I feel I've been very lucky as well, you know. As I've mentioned in the past as well, there's a lot of people, if we're looking at the capacity of musicians who are very talented, very able people who probably haven't had the same opportunities that maybe I got. And I don't think that's down to just sheer tenacity or because I practiced really hard or did this. Like, I've been very lucky, and I've had a lot of love from the people, from the culture, from Punjab. And as I've been growing, how, you know, the influence that not only I've had, but I'm now making is kind of slowly rippling out of the core Punjabi audience and you know, the influence on different spaces which might not be solely Punjabi and maybe not even solely South Asian. So it's been amazing. I've had a lot to learn. And one beautiful thing about the journey's been, I don't know, like, you know, you get some artists that just have that one song that just makes them go so clear. I don't really think I've had that in my journey, where it's been gradual, like, building blocks, and we've gone from strength to strength. I've always felt like there's longevity in that.
That's why I used the word consistency at the start, because I think that's what it is. I don't think there was one overnight anthem. I don't think there was one kind of one moment that you could place as this is where Raf became Raf. It has been a kind of gradual, steady, consistent building of blocks, as you mentioned. Absolutely. But it's weird because a lot of people during lockdown and during the COVID period went into a bubble. You've spoken in interviews about how you think that was a great opportunity for people to discover new talent. People were sitting around, they were looking at things on the internet. Yeah. But there are other people who just found comfort in the familiar, watching of the same things, listening of the same things, not really scouting new talent. Yeah. And so for them, there is pre-COVID world without Raf-Saperra and post-COVID world with Raf-Saperra. Yeah. And I wonder how you react to people who don't know about the graft that you put in, because they just suddenly came out of their houses and all of a sudden their friends are talking about this guy called Raf-Saperra. Yeah, you know, how do you react to people who don't know how much work has gone into that?
I've said this before and I say it again, man. I'm a hustler to the core, and you know, I hustled my way into this. I didn't really have no industry godfather who brought me in, or I know this guy and I've got this guy's endorsement. Like, you know, everything I've done has been off of the strength of the blessings of God, and honestly, the people welcoming me with open arms. But if I'm being totally honest, it's an amazing feeling, as in I'm always kind of humbled in that sense, where they're like, okay, you might not know me. Some people don't even know, like, my journey started through Instagram covers. You know, I've archived those. But
why did you archive them?
You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, you really had to be there, man. 2020 COVID, it was a real thing.
What were they covers of? What were you singing covers of? I didn't see that phase of Raf-Saperra.
Amazing. So it's like, I put out, so my baby, my love has always been cinema and filmmaking, and I was working as a music video director for a long time. And, you know, I worked with Rackstar, First Man, H Dummy, Jazz Dummy, and, like, you know, I was unknowingly getting so familiar with, I guess, the musicians in the scene. And then all of a sudden COVID happens. I've always loved music. I've learned it, like, just behind the scenes. It wasn't really this thing like, oh, I want to become a musician. If anything, like, this whole Raf-Saperra thing happened so accidentally. But I'll be honest, I just put up a random video on my Instagram, which had 200 followers at the time. And then that started spreading. And then once I kind of just maintained that momentum because people really liked it and it was just at the forefront of any and every Punjabi blog, I really kind of made my taste palette over there. I found my audience, covers of like Jazzy B, Kulvinder Dhillon, Harjeet Harman, and that's a very particular pocket of Punjabi music. And I guess I carved my niche, and the cult following surrounding Raf-Saperra now, it stems from there.
I think this is what people respect. I think it's the fact that you know your world, you know the community that you're talking to, you know the industry that you're paying homage to. The artists that you just mentioned, they are not artists that are necessarily active today. Some of those artists are not singing anymore, and yet you still have the respect and the knowledge to kind of dip into that world. I think also you're the perfect marriage of art and image. I think the image you've created of Raf-Saperra is I mean, the fact that it's different to who you are, right? You're Adil, Raf is an identity that you've created. There's already this kind of curiosity as to what the image of Raf-Saperra is.
Yeah.
And then the art is so purist and is still so authentic that you kind of learn to respect you because there's a realness in that as well.
Yeah.
How do you balance those two worlds of this image of being this artist who you want people to admire, but also be curious about, and also be really true to the essence of the art that you're producing?
No, I appreciate that question, man. I would say it's funny you mention image. I'll give you this example. I don't really get to sit with a lot of people who watch a lot of Hindi cinema. I love Punjabi cinema, but I've watched a lot of Hindi cinema growing up as well. And Salim Khanji, Salman Khanji's father, he mentioned this thing where he mentions images, and he's like, as a filmmaker, like, I deal with images. It's like, you give me a gun and it's going to look a certain way, and when Amitabh Bachchan picks a gun up, now we're talking done. And it's just really understanding that visual literacy, like what things look good on me, what things don't, but it's not necessarily, it's also simultaneously leaning into my truth, like, whether it was my fashion or my kind of music palette. Like, as a 90s kid, I was always just really heavy on the 90s sound. I wasn't trying to do it so we look cool, but it was kind of like, yo, man, I grew up liking Wu-Tang. I've listened to a lot of Punjabi music, but the real pocket that I truly, genuinely, like grew up listening to, it probably wasn't like the Kuldeep Manikji, classics or Amar Singh Chamkila. I had to visit that after I got to know about Punjabi music a bit more. But like growing up innately, it was like Jazzy B and Sarjit Pindrakia was like heavy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think just in my house, just in UK, like Balwinder Safriji, Malkeet Singh, like this was the reality I kind of grew up. So naturally I wanted to, the sound palette, the soundscape was just true to me, what I kind of identify myself as, whether that was Punjabi music or whether, like, I'm shamelessly a massive fan of Himesh Reshammiya, people,
Oh, what a guy.
Absolutely, man. It's still like outside of his vocal, his career as a vocalist, which I think was amazing, but like,
You like music composer.
music composing and production is phenomenal, man.
Music composer Himesh is great, but vocalist Himesh is a whole other genre in itself.
I mean, like, you really had to beat him, man. 2005, I remember just seeing the Ashik Banaya Apne remix, and I was like, yo, this
Jhadak Diklaja,
crazy.
Ashiki Mein Teri.
Look at that, man.
What a
You know I'm
vibe.
saying? Look, and it's like, but when I talk about these things, then obviously it's like the kind of like 90s hip hop I was into, and I feel like not just British Punjabi producers, but just Punjabi production, but in particular because we are in UK and there's been phenomenal British music producers, Punjabi music producers who have really made the rum punch of hip hop and Punjabi folk. Like, that is something we are so, like, it's like when Goddard was doing like jump cuts and Breathless, and it was seen as like a phenomenal thing in filmmaking at the time, and he was such a rule breaker. But then now when we do jump cuts, like, the audience today is like, that's just normal.
Yeah.
But like that, like, rum punch of what hip hop and Punjabi was going on back then, that was just the first of its kind. It wasn't normal. And these guys, like, the names that we know, like, they're the trailblazers. So like sometimes when we're doing this stuff now, it seems so new, but like I can only imagine what it might have been to just be, I don't know, my age, or just be at an age where I'm aware and just hearing Punjabi MCs 100% proof. They're like, what on earth is this? And most importantly, Haroon, my thing was working as a filmmaker, there was almost like this standard where it's like we look at the West and it's like, well, they obviously have amazing music videos, but, we're brown, so it's all right. Like, we're kind of like supposed to be crap unless it's like high production value like Bollywood, because that's where the money's at. And it's like, why? So my fight was always kind of like, nah, man, I'm gonna make something aesthetically speaking with such high production value, whether that's the kind of cameras, the lenses we're using, it's got to be like toe to toe with what's happening in the West. But at the same time, it's gonna be so like unapologetically, and especially with my kind of music, tiered desi Punjabi folk, it's just gonna be so pendu and so desi, but the production's gonna have this like real, like, you know, East Coast traditional swing. And when you add all these things together, which are undeniably stripped from whether it's producers, artists, films that I've been inspired by, and I put that together, I think what we got was glassy rhythm. And one thing I wanted was like, when I just dropped my first project, I don't care who says, like, I don't care who sees it, but the first thing needs to be like, who is this guy? And I think that happened, man. I was really lucky for that to happen. And shouts to the homie Badshaw as well, man. I remember when Glassy Rhythm dropped, like, I don't know for what reason he shared it with the link, and I just remember like the streams and the views just shooting up. Because I promised myself, I was like, if I don't get 100K views, I might just leave the music thing alone.
Really?
Yeah, I was
because
like,
you did leave music for a period in the 2010s, right? Where you were focusing on filmmaking and you weren't really listening to music, you weren't consuming it. So you even dabbling in it again at the start of lockdown was what? Was just a bit of fun? Was it
therapeutic, man?
Right.
I was at a really dark place. Like, you know, I had a very, you know, normal, like, a corporate job, should I say, that I made the decision of leaving. And then, you know, now I'm essentially freelance, and then COVID happens. And like, you know, to anyone who's doing freelance work out there, man, it's not easy. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and bills have to get paid, and now work's not coming in. And it was just a very dark time. And like, you know, we living in London, I don't know for anyone else, man, but I never saw anything like COVID, like going out and no one's actually on the streets, you know? And so those things were kind of like playing in my head, and Lord knows, man, it was some divine timing, you could say. And I don't know why. I've sung before, I've sent it to my friends, but I don't know what possessed me to share that so publicly. And I don't know what possessed people to show so much love. And I don't know what possessed everyone to have me on BBC Asian Network talking about my life right now.
I've heard you talk really well in an interview you did with Tarannum, which was a really, really good chat you had, where you spoke a lot about your identity. And I think a lot of it resonated with me because you're not necessarily encouraged to pursue careers in the art form when you come from the same backgrounds that we do.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily you're encouraged to consume them.
Yeah, it's true.
You're encouraged to consume them because that's a part of life, right? But you're not necessarily encouraged to pursue them. And even coming to the point internally that this is something that is worth pursual, that is worth a career, that is worth a shot, takes a lot of internal battle within itself. Even though you had a very supportive mum, even though your mum, you know, encouraged you, it still takes a lot. So how much have you dealt with even to get to the point of coming to peace with the fact that you can be this person, that you can be this identity?
It sounds shameless to say, but I'm like having the time of my life. I think it's some people might need to digest that, and you know, and that whether that's, you know, if we look at it from the grand, you know, scope of, you know, whether be it haters or be it even like family, you know, I feel, you know, my father was, you know, very traditional, desi dad, and when the instruments were coming home, he was quite resistant. But then when the harmonium came home, that's when he was there. Like, I think I remember even him like it was not easy on my mum. She was there like, he was like, what is this? Like, what are you lot doing? So then there's now an internal struggle to kind of show like, this isn't just shonk. Like, I kind of think I'm good at this. And I think people kind of think I'm good at it as well. But I'm not just doing this off of the strength of let's just throw it out there. Like, I'm learning. I'm still putting in time to hone and like actually learn my craft and go into, you know, mentors, ustads, gurus who I've kind of seeked and I know what I want to learn from them. And then, you know, once this is now being presented, I think things kind of eased up for me personally when, especially when Sukshinda Shindaji and I worked so early on in my career. My third track, man, imagine that. Snake Charmer is still one of my favorite tracks of mine. And I think that's when, like, my mum was like, yo, to my dad, like, yo, man, like, people really like your son. And obviously my dad, knowing out of, like, you know, the first two singles, he didn't know who the producers were, but then now he's like, yo, I guess, all right, I guess my son's doing all right. But I feel that internal struggle for me, and just being someone of the diaspora, being South Asian, like, there's not a lot of representation in the scene, man. So outside of your own community, which we know can get really, you know, sometimes it's very kind of like borders up and
It's toxic.
extremely toxic, and to make that peace, as you know, like, we have to make our own peace. And I think I say this for both you and I, man. I think we have an amazing network and group of friends around us that can protect us from all that toxicity. But the reality is, there's a ton of love out there for what we're doing.
There is, but you know, when I talk about your kind of internal struggle,
Yeah.
it's twofold, right? Because you're in a British Pakistani household, which is liberal to an extent, but also has conservative values as well. You've spoken about, you know, you come from a Bind background, in you know, a village background. There is a conservative mindset that is seeped into your upbringing and you growing up, and then you're also an outcast in the music industry because you don't exactly from the same culture as everybody else. There is a difference, you know, there's a difference in certain habits, there's difference in certain styles, there's even a difference in the dialect of language, right? So you have been shunned by parts of your family for being told, like, this is not a viable career, and you've been shunned by parts of the music industry for being told, you don't quite fit in with us, you're not quite the same. How do you carve out Raf-Saperra in the middle of that?
I turn up front row at Paris Fashion Week. I've grown up with a very eclectic upbringing, be that in fashion, be that in my friendship circle. Bro, I grew up in South London. Like, I'm only making, like, a lot of my Punjabi friends kind of got made when I was, like, leaving high school, because I started doing dole class, and I was like, yo, other brown folk from South London, and finding a dole class in South London is like finding a needle in a haystack. But you know, but that's also part of my journey. But still, like, most of my immediate, like, friendship circle growing up was either from African or Caribbean backgrounds. So it's crazy because even in those situations, I never really felt like an outsider. In some instances, I might have felt that in my own brown scene. But, like, doing that and growing up like that, it was just like fair game all the way around, bro. Like, musically, conversations, the slang, the like, even the fact, I've mentioned this before, like, I remember 2016, we were in Japan, me, my brother Nate and Vinch, we went Tokyo for like 2 weeks. I just remember, like, everyone just turning up in the crib, and my boy is just doing his thing, and he just puts on Kaka Perniola's Daru Piki, and he's burst, and he's just talking about, hey, bruv, this is like, Nate's like of dual heritage. He's like of an Irish and Jamaican background, and this man's telling me about Kaka Perniola, and it's still like, that's my normality. So whenever I'm around things that don't feel like that, or it feels a bit too weird, like, I'm out of there, bro. But to kind of answer your question, it's, you know, just finding my own tribe, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be within South Asian folk. My tribe could be everywhere, anywhere.
You're the first person to chart this kind of uncharted territory. By that, I mean, most Punjabi artists that reach a level of success mostly are from Indian Punjab.
Oh, absolutely.
They are mostly of Sikh background. They are not necessarily coming with the same lived experiences that you are. Yes, a lot is shared. A lot is shared. And at Asian Network, we celebrate what is shared and what we have in common. And I'm very much an ambassador for that. But I also think it's really important to highlight individual journeys, and your lived experience is unique, and you've spoken about how feeling discriminated against in the Punjabi music industry because your background is different. And I just want to know to what extent that's still prevalent even when you become the Raf-Saperra that you are today, where you have success, where you've collaborated with so many artists. Is it still something that you feel the pinch of? Do you feel othered in any way?
To be totally honest, with kind of like a discrimination element, Not so much because I've, recently, our brother Gulab Sidhu, he was making his way to UK, with my brother, rest in peace, Sidhu Musala. And there's many names I can give, and it's like, the artists in and from Punjab, like, as we say, man, like they like in Punjabi, like gal vakri paun wali gal, hai na, ke like these guys have like really like held me close. This isn't really even something I shared like publicly, but like shouts to Diljit Baji as well on my last body of work, which was a completely underground, independent release, very different from everything I've done before. A very melancholic, slow body of work. Like, that stuff's not made. Like Raf-Saperra's like success has been seen in like very dance floor orientated spaces, but that is a sound that I wanted to tap into to show you a bit of kind of like, some flavors from my part of Punjab, man, and like, the Rudari and like the Sufiana andaz and
Chalia and Nazara are great.
I
Like they're
appreciate
great
that, man.
songs.
Thank you. And Nazara's really close. That whole EP is really close to me, but Nazara in particular, that was entirely like written and composed by me, and it's the kind of love it got was really special. But just to have someone like, at the peak and at the top of his game, just like sharing the positive words, and Diljit Baji obviously, gave a lot of love. He's like, it's a beautiful body of work. And that's something you could have just seen and not interacted with. But that's the reality that not only just like me as a Punjabi is living, but that's me as a British artist living as well, man. And I think like Raf-Saperra, as I've said before, is an anomaly. Like we've had a lot of success coming in from my brothers who are from the motherland, man. You know what I'm saying? And obviously they've gone into other worlds and other cities, other countries. And ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੀ struggle ਆ, bro. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਆਪਣਾ they've got their own storyline. When I see someone like Karan Aujla and I see where you've come from to where you've gone, it's phenomenal. I think it's really exciting when I look at Raf-Saperra objectively, being born and raised in the West, but still being part of such a very prominent part of the relevant discussion of some of like, the prominent Punjabi music names. And I think that's something, it excites me more than it worries me, because it's still like, yo, like this is a true moment. We're not only having for like British Punjabi music, but British music in general, man. Like, I don't say this in a pompous or big-headed way, but like last year was my second year touring as a touring artist, and like, we've sold out back to back both years. And when I look at that, I see the strength in the community, man. And should there have ever been any feelings of like feeling made to feel any kind of way, then where's that support coming from? And for anyone who's even ever tried to make, this is what I said to Tarannum G as well, as in like, yo, the party's way bigger and louder over here. So, I won't stop you from doing your party, but you know what I'm saying? You should pull up to our shows.
But
It's lit.
it definitely feels like representation, right? Like, because what you're saying is, where's all that love coming from if there's any sort of division? And I think that's a really, really true point. But I think what you've got is you've got fans of Punjabi music who automatically are enjoying your music because it's real and it's
Yeah.
authentic and it sounds good and your voice is good and it's quality stuff, right?
Yeah, man.
But you've also given representation to a part of the Punjabi community who never saw themselves really. Like, there wasn't really a Muslim Pakistani Punjabi artist that
Yeah.
they could identify with, and
Yeah.
representation does count for a lot. So you've given those people a face and a voice.
I appreciate that, man. Obviously, like, we've had some and have some amazing artists who, maybe from my kind of same background. But I think one thing that's really unique about me, is like, I hate to keep mentioning the fact that I'm British, but it's the UK
Yeah.
factor, man. Like, there is a very, very, very rich history this country, and in particular the city of Birmingham, has with Punjabi music. So I feel, really understanding and knowing where you're from, there's strength in that, man, and there's strength in visiting, the forefathers or foremothers, and just like the when we say ancestors, we don't necessarily mean like some ancient Aztec stuff, but like look in our catalog and see like where our music, when I see these sold out tours and the amount of love that I've received um as from an international front, it just makes me feel like, yo, like I don't know, if this is how everyone else sees me, but I'm kind of going out there as an ambassador for this part of, for this part of town and for this part of the industry or this country, because let's not deny this spot used to be the mecca of creating a Punjabi star. We welcome Jazzy B from Surrey, and when I look at the time that I've spent and the kind of, I don't want to say endorsement might be the wrong word, but the love that I've received from, people I've looked at as legends, like, Master Salim G. And I remember the first time I got to meet Gurdas Manji and their team, and that was just an amazing, like they are my senior, you know what I'm saying? And like that's what I found really unique. And that's what I've not really seen a lot of, despite the legendary status that Mansab has, how much warmth he welcomed me with. I was not, that was way more than I deserved. But now that's, as we say in Punjabi, that level of hala sheri, that level of recognition, that level of me going home on the drive back, like, yo, man, like, one of the forefathers of this entire genre and this music, this sound, this culture, this history, looked at me and he said, yeah, like, you're doing your thing. No, that was exact words.
What I think is really unique about you is in the space of like 4 or 5 months, you can put out She Loves Me Not, and then you can put out a Renaissance. And the styles are so uniquely different. They're worlds apart, and they're both equally Raf-Saperra at the same time. You know that a Renaissance is commercially going to perform much better. It's commercial, it's mainstream, it's icky on the music. It is a much more accessible sound than Qawwali and Ghazal, which you feature in She Loves Me Not.
Yeah.
But why is it important for you to put that out and this out in such a short span? You could have consistently high views and streams putting out something like Step Out, but you still choose to show love to something like what you put out a few months ago.
It's important because it's undeniably like me. I think a lot of artists are making a sound that works for them, and now because the commerce and the business of it is working, they're going to do that. Modern Mirza done phenomenal for me, bro. I wasn't released. My release is one Modern Mirza. I didn't continue making that. So it's important for me to continue showing you my versatility, and just like, I'm kind of figuring this stuff out with the audience. But I listen to Qawwali, I listen to pop, I listen to rock, I listen to hip hop. Not to say I'm going to release all those tapes, but
You could.
well, let's see. You might hear something like that in Renaissance. We've just been having fun and not been, honestly, man, just not taking myself too seriously. Like, my core foundation is Thet Desi Punjabi folk, but I also want you to realize there is the Rudari of Punjabi music. There is the Anak of Punjabi music. There is the roaring dance floor, foot stomping, Bhangra, that's Punjabi. And it's important that I show all these things, because I've treated all my bodies of work as films. So, Rough Round the Edges was a very eclectic body of work. Five Deadly Venoms was hip hop. She Loves Me Not was like soul, Sufiana, like, kind of R&B vibes. And now this is just like entirely shamelessly pop.
It's so good. It's so good. I really love the new EP. I love what you've done with it. I think Sung, Step Out and Broken are my favorite tunes on there. The other two are more Thet Punjabi. The three that I've picked are slightly a kind of a blend of different genres together. I know you've said when you hear music, you see visuals. And when I heard Broken, I saw a kind of a Ranbir Kapoor movie in my head. It felt to me very Ranbir Kapoor-esque, Preetham kind of soundtrack, Imtiaz Ali sort of, or Zoya Akhtar sort of visuals. Is this your attempt at going even more cinematic with your music? Because it is theatrical. It's very
extremely theatrical, and like when you hear my part or whether you hear Sid's part, like it's just a movie. I see myself riding into the horizon on a Harley Davidson topless with tears flying off my face. That's the kind of visuals it is. Don't know if you lot want to see that, but you know. But at the same time, it's just like it's such a different sound, and I feel in my time with working with Icky on this project, I don't think people have actually heard me like singing like that.
It's incredible. It's almost a little bit Rugby Shergill-esque. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
Rugby Shergill, who
Yeah,
sings.
of course.
You know, it gave me that kind of like the strings on it, the vibe of it is very chilled and like it's beautiful. It's absolutely
essentially,
beautiful.
I would say it's more like your prime time like like pop country rock or country like genre track with Sid singing this beautiful ballad. When I approached this, I approached it like a playback singer. I was thinking of the Udit Narayans, I was thinking of the Kumar Shanus, and I was thinking of like really showing character and expression, which sometimes some people are shy to do because they're like, oh, that's sensitive, man. But we're artists, man. You know what I'm saying? I'll give you the roaring bhangra bangers, but like I want you to also feel when a song requires you to feel. And you know, I'm trying to extend the vocabulary of masculinity as opposed to just you know, staying within a certain parameter. And I think that's what, you know, this not only the EP cover of Renaissance, but the kind of genres I've dabbled into, the subject matter, the language. It's just a really fun and positive, most importantly, sounding body of work. And you know, there's something in there for everyone. You've already heard it, man. So it's like, you know, whether you like bhangra, pop, or you know, just stepping out. I feel Step Out's the international get ready with me anthem. So, you know, just have fun.
Absolutely.
Honestly, just have fun.
Raf, thank you so much.